Oops. All right. Well, we're here in Studio B, legendary Studio B at Capitol Studios with legendary producer Al Schmitt, and we've talked here at the studios about numerous sessions going back to Sam Cooke and all the way up to Bob Dylan and so forth. But
right here in this room,
the topic du jour is volunteers.
50 years ago. I can't believe I'm not old. I'm not 50. How can that record be 50 years old?
I have the same thing, but my goodness, I had just graduated high school that June, so this was a pretty epic record in my musical repertoire.
Yeah.
It was a turntable staple for years. But
let me tell you a little story.
We'd love to hear about it. Go ahead.
One little story. I was having dinner with Elvis Costello and Diana Krall in New York about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And we were talking about this album, Volunteers. And he said to me he had saved enough money to go and buy tickets to see the Beatles in Liverpool. When he got off the train or whatever, where he was coming from, it was such a mob. There were no tickets to be had, and it was just insane. So he went into a record shop and he bought this album. So he said he'll never forget this how he got a hold of this album.
That's a
great story. He was going to go see the Beatles and wound up with the Volunteers.
Well, that's a pretty good substitute.
Not bad.
That'll work.
Not bad.
That'll work.
He's such a good big fan anyway,
This was released in November 1969.
Right.
And you had produced how many Airplane albums?
This is my fourth
one.
This was the last one. Okay. I did After Bathing in Baxter's, plus Its Pointed Little Head, Crown of Creation, and Volunteers.
Okay, so
and then I did the Hot Tuna, the acoustic.
Right, the
great blues.
The Splinter group, which was very cool.
Hot Tuna.
Well, so let's flash back to maybe 50 years and a few months. What was going on with the band at the time when they were after Crown of Creation? They toured probably, and so
they did. And
what was cooking as this was starting to be
well,
thought
they were
about?
all individually writing things.
Come on up tight here.
Yeah, they were all individually writing things. They they never sat down and wrote as groups. Once in a while they would get together and come up with ideas and things, but pretty much everybody wrote, like Grace, she, White Rabbit, Rejoice, all those Grace. And so she would I was the producer, but she was kind of in control of what happened with her song, how she wanted it to come out, and my job was to help her get to that point.
She heard it, and
right.
You needed to help her get.
And she would play and whatever. And I loved Grace back then because it was a crazy time and a lot of drugs and a lot of visitors coming and shit going on. But I could always, when I needed something done, count on Grace. I could always go, Grace, can we do background vocal on this? Could we try doing a vocal on it? Yep, she was always there. I didn't get that total cooperation from everybody.
Was she helpful in wrangling the other guys?
She was very helpful in all of it, yeah. And everybody was. It was a totally different way to make records back then because this was one of those things where they would go in and come, this germ of creation would come, and it would start to happen, and then it would be my job was to try to pull that out of them and let's work on that or that kind of thing.
There's a germ of a song. Let's work that.
Right.
Can you remember of any of the songs? I'll just run the track list down here real fast. We Can Be Together, Good Shepherd, The Farm, Hey Frederick, Turn My Life Down, Wooden Ships, I don't have my glasses on.
Wooden
This is
Ships
terrible.
was,
Oh, geez, Eskimo. God,
yeah.
this is terrible. I
I
can't
know.
read without my
Yeah,
glasses.
well, hey,
Oh, God. Okay. Eskimo Blue Day, my goodness.
Right.
A Song for All Seasons, Meadowlands, and Volunteers. Now, of the tunes here, can you remember which were kind of pretty much baked when they brought them in? Or,
Wooden Ships, I think, was one because that was written David Crosby.
Crosby was a
And
co-writer,
was
yeah.
co-writer and whatever. And I remember when they came in, and we worked on it, and David came and helped out.
Now,
Yeah.
it's David's credited with the music Sailboat. Now,
Yeah.
how did he play Sailboat?
Well,
What-
he owned the sailboat.
Yeah, I know.
And that was his big thing.
But how did you
He
cue
owned
up the
Hawaii.
Sailboat to include it on the record?
I have no, I don't even remember at this point.
Was it like a sound recording he might have
Yeah,
made,
something
off the
yeah.
side of the boat?
I'd have to hear it again at some point
Yeah, okay.
to bring it up.
Very good. Well, let's can we go through the tracks really fast?
Yeah, as we can, yeah.
Okay. Well,
What I can remember 50 years ago.
okay, fair enough. But I also want to talk about the recording and the equipment also
Right.
because you guys are working on 8-track.
Yeah,
which is-
8-track, 16-track.
And 16-track was pretty
Finally.
new at the time.
It was, and and it's the famous line from engineers is, "What the hell are we going to do with 16 tracks?" and now we're mixing stuff with 100 tracks, so it's insane.
There you go. Well, okay, so We Can Be Together.
Right.
Did that develop in the studio, or was that
Yeah,
something
that's
that?
yeah. No, that was again. They were all when they were ready to make the record, and we got everything set and booked the time and all. They had pretty much ideas down of what to do, so that's how we went about it.
Was ideas to the point where they had done demos, or
No, they don't. They never did demos.
Okay.
They all it was written down or things that they'd play and sing and whatever, and they'd have half the words written and then everybody would kind of pitch in here and there, looking for a word, and somebody say this, I know there's one thing on, I'm not sure if it's on this, where a bunch of us were doing background, and some guy yells out, "No man is an island," and the manager of the airplane at that time, Bill Thompson, he was in the band. He said, "No, he's a peninsula." I mean, just stuff like that, and that was just off the top of the head, so it stayed.
yeah, well,
I mean, it was just that was it. We just, one of the things that surprised me more than anything was, I know they had the big hits, 2 big hit singles, but the amount of albums that they sold without hits. This didn't have a hit single.
right.
It had Up Against the Wall, Motherfucker in it, but other than that, and these records, they all did really extremely well.
Well, it was that time when albums were all killer, no filler, if you will.
Right.
I mean, you could, and Sgt. Pepper kind of launched that, or Rubber Soul and
Yeah.
Revolver actually launched that. It proved that you could make a record that had strong tracks from front to back, and you didn't really necessarily need a hit single.
Right, exactly.
Led Zeppelin had done that.
Yeah,
Grateful
yeah.
Dead, same thing,
Right.
but they did get quite a bit of radio play for We Can Be Together.
Yeah.
But the lyrics weren't always clear. Sometimes it was. How did that? First of all, how did you guys decide to leave that in there? And then
Well-
did they come back to you? The label come back to you and ask you to edit the
What happened was
garble?
when we were done here, and we sent it back, and they heard Up Against the Wall, Motherfucker. I got the call.
You got the call.
And I got the call that they got to take that out. We're not going to release the record if they don't take that out. So I said, okay, and I called Bill and Thompson, sat down, and I said, here's the story, guys. We don't take out Up Against the Wall, Motherfucker. If we don't take out Motherfucker, they're not going to release the album. And every one of them said, fine, don't put it out. That was it. 2 weeks later, I got the call the album was going out because they needed the billing. So it was all bullshit, you know. They were trying to
was a bluff.
force these
It's a
guys,
bluff.
right, force them to do something. And you know, that was one of the great things that I admired about the Jefferson Airplane is they stood their ground. And even at times they could have been wrong at points, but they still stood their ground.
They at least had a point of view and
They
a
had
standpoint
a point of view
rather
and a
than
reasonable point of view, and it was almost like they all said it with one voice. Okay, fine, don't.
well, as it says on the record, all the songs in this album have been recorded complete and unexpurgated as they are performed on stage by Jefferson Airplane,
Yeah.
which is a big middle finger to the censors, basically,
Right, exactly.
which is
Yeah.
cool. Now, I mean, we could go through the tracks, but I know that
Yeah.
you've got time constraints
Yeah,
and
mixing.
you got a project here. But one of the things that anybody that I talk with about this record, and a lot of the things that I've read online, are just remark about the sound, the crispness of Jorma's guitar sound, the fullness of it. You are like freaking in the room with him when you do that. What were you doing to make that happen?
Well, it was a combination, actually, of my brother Richie, who was the engineer at the time, and went up to San Francisco with me and stayed with me while we were making these records. And we had been working together on a few other projects for Grunt Records. You know,
Their label.
yeah, their label. And we worked on it really hard. This was the first record done at Wally Hiders in San Francisco. And we had the one room done where we had everybody. There was another room that was under construction. So what happened was Jack was playing so loud on us that we had almost no control. So what we did, we took Jack and we put him in the room that was unfinished. So it was like a separate isolation booth, and that's how we were able to get because you know his bass was deep and big and you know it covered up a lot, so we were able to have a little more control over it.
And that other room that you put him in wasn't quite finished.
It wasn't
right?
finished yet.
So it was a little brighter, maybe.
It was, it didn't have all the
Insulation
coatings,
and-
insulation, and everything. Yeah, but it worked out really well for us. Thank God for that. We'd have been in trouble. I don't know how the hell, because there was no way we could separate him in the room with everybody else. He was so loud.
No,
But that worked.
it sure did.
Yeah.
Did Jorma work with you on his guitar sound in the same way that Grace worked with you on her songs and arrangements and
Yeah.
stuff? What kind of things did he ask you to do to help him get the sound he
Well, he
heard?
would bring me out in the room and play and say, you know, this is what I'm looking for. You know, how do we, the best way to get this? And then we would, you know, Richie and I, my brother, the engineer, we would try different microphones, different setups, different angles. You know, we experimented a lot. These things weren't done in like 2 weeks, you know?
You had a little bit more time.
Yeah, after Bathing in Baxter's was 5 months,
Right.
one record. So this was not quite that long, but it was, you know, and they were at the point then where they were so hot, such a big group at this point, that this is when they started Grunt Records, because they wanted to give other artists that would never get an opportunity a
Right.
chance to.
Well, it was also a launching pad for Hot Tuna,
Exactly.
you know, for
Exactly.
Jack and his crew
Right.
to go do that. So
And that was, well, that was such a.
that was a whole other
amazing
movie.
record,
Yeah.
A whole other movie.
Very good. So here we are, 50 years later. We're still talking about it.
I know,
It's
and
pretty
you know, and I'm
amazing.
getting so much since in November when it was 50. There was so many happy birthdays and all that stuff that came on online, and I was just kind of blown away that so many people still remember this record.
This is like ingrained in the DNA for people our age. Are you kidding me?
I know, and it's hard for me to think that way, you know.
Well, we have a couple of more minutes. A couple of the session guys on the record, Nicky Hopkins in particular.
Unbelievable.
He was working with Quicksilver and
the Stones and everybody.
He was the piano player on Revolution by the Beatles, and oh my,
He's and the coolest, sweetest man in the world. I had known his work, and when I realized he was going to come and play piano, because Grace was basically, piano player, keyboardist. But I was thrilled, and then to get to meet him and see what a sweet guy he was, and so much talent, and everybody was kind of. He just raised everything up a little bit. It was nice.
Nice, very good. And Jerry Garcia from the Dead
yeah,
also.
Yeah.
He came in and played pedal steel on.
Yeah.
What was that session like?
It was typical, everybody high and whacked, and I think we took him direct in the control room.
Just plugged him in and let him wail.
I think that's what happened. Yeah, let him go, and then what do I do? I'm going to tell Jerry Garcia how to play.
All you can do
this
is like
doesn't
try
have to go on the
to.
record, but he's the only thing in the Grateful Dead that I thought was worth anything.
There you go.
That's my personal opinion.
Okay, all right.
Because he was really a talent.
And we talked about Crosby contributing Sailboat.
That was Sailboats.
Pretty good.
And the song, certainly that.
It's an epic.
Yeah.
To coin a phrase.
Right.
For sure. And then later on, the worst of Jefferson Airplane was a brilliant move to sequence "We Can Be Together" and "Volunteers Together." Was that your?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Kudos for that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Al Schmitt, it's great.